Jurors, I am now going to read your verdicts to you, after which I will make inquiry of you as to whether or not, indeed, I have accurately read the verdicts to you. In the state of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey Dahmer, case number F912542, a special verdict. Question 1. At the time the crime was committed in count 1 of the information in regard to the death of James E. Dockstader, did the defendant, Jeffrey L. Dahmer, have a mental disease? Answer, no. There are 2 dissenting jurors. As the foreman of the jury. Maybe a good way to do this, counsel, is if I would inquire at each stage whether or not this accurately reflects the other than, do you all agree with the answer that I have read to you? Everybody agrees that I have correctly read it?
That's it.
Again, in the state of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey Dahmer, case number F912542, in a special verdict, question number 1. At the time the crime was committed in count 2 of the information, in regard to the death of Richard Guerrero, did the defendant, Jeffrey L. Dahmer, have a mental disease? Answer, no. Question number 2 need not be answered. There are 2 dissenting jurors. Again, other than jurors, do you all agree that this is your verdict? Everybody agrees? Again, in the state of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey Dahmer, case number F912542, question number 1. At the time the crime was committed in count 3 of the information, in regard to the death of Anthony Sears, did the defendant, Jeffrey L. Dahmer, have a mental disease? Answer, no. As to question number 2, it need not be answered. Dissenting jurors? That all these verdicts are dated the 15th day of February, 1992. Again, other than jurors, state of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey Dahmer, case number F912542, special verdict, question number 1. Time the crime was committed in count 4 of the information, in regard to the death of Raymond Smith, also known as Ricky Beeks, did the defendant, Jeffrey L. Dahmer, have a mental disease? Answer, no. State of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey L. Dahmer, case number F912542. Question number 1. At the time the crime was committed in count 5 of the information in regard to the death of Edward W. Smith, did the defendant, Jeffrey L. Dahmer, have a mental disease? Answer, no. Question number 2 need not be answered. Dissenting jurors? Again, other than those who have dissented, do all of you, each and every one of you, agree that this is your verdict? State of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey L. Dahmer, case number F912542, special verdict. Question number 1. At the time the crime was committed in count 6 of the information in regard to the death of Ernest Miller, did the defendant Jeffrey L. Dahmer have a mental disease? Answer, no. And again, question 2 need not be answered. Dissenting jurors? Again, jurors, other than those who dissented, do all of you agree that this indeed is your verdict? State of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey L. Dahmer, case number F912542, special verdict. Question number 1. At the time the crime was committed in count 7 of the information in regard to the death of David Thomas, did the defendant Jeffrey L. Dahmer have a mental disease? Answer, no. Question number 2 need not be answered. Again, jurors, other than for the dissenting jurors, do you all agree that this is your verdict? State of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey L. Dahmer, case number F912542, special verdict. Question number 1. At the time the crime was committed in count 8 of the information in regard to the death of Curtis Straughter, did the defendant Jeffrey L. Dahmer have a mental disease? Answer, no. Question number 2 need not be answered. Dated in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this 15th day of February 1992, dissenting juror. Other than those of you who have dissented, do all of you agree that this indeed is your verdict? State of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey L. Dahmer, case number F912542, special verdict. Question number 1. At the time the crime was committed in count 9 of the information in regard to the death of Errol Lindsay, did the defendant Jeffrey L. Dahmer have a mental disease? Answer, no. Question 2 need not be answered, and this is dated Milwaukee, Wisconsin, on the 15th day of February 1992. This jurors, other than for those of you who have dissented, do you all agree that this indeed is your verdict? State of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey L. Dahmer, case number F912542. Special verdict, question number 1. At the time the crime was committed in count 10 of the information in regard to the death of Tony Anthony Hughes, did the defendant Jeffrey L. Dahmer have a mental disease? Answer, no. Question number 2 need not be answered. Dated in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this 15th day of February 1992. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do you agree that this is your verdict? State State of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey Dahmer, case number F912542. Special verdict, question number 1. At the time the crime was committed in count 11 of the information in regard to the death of Conorak Synthesymphone, did the defendant, Jeffrey L. Dahmer, have a mental disease? Answer, no. Question number 2 need not be answered. Dated in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this 15th day of February, 1992. Dissenting juror. The dissenting jurors, do you all agree that this indeed is your verdict? State of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey Dahmer, case number F912542, special verdict, question number 1. At the time the crime was committed in count 12 of the information in regard to the death of Matt Turner, also known as Donald Montrell, did the defendant Jeffrey L. Dahmer have a mental disease? Answer, no. Question number 2 need not be answered. Dated at Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this 15th day of February, 1992. Dissenting jurors, do you all agree that this indeed is the verdict of the jury? State of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey L. Dahmer, case number F912542, special verdict. Question number 1. At the time the crime was committed in count 13 of the information in regard to the death of Jeremiah Weinberger, did the defendant Jeffrey L. Dahmer have a mental disease? Answer, no. Question number 2 need not be answered. Dated at Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this 15th day of February, 1992. Dissenting juror. State of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey L. Dahmer. Case number F912542, special verdict, question number 1. The time the crime was committed in count 14 of the information in regard to the death of Oliver Lacey, did the defendant Jeffrey L. Dahmer have a mental disease? Answer, no. Question number 2 need not be answered. Dated in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this 15th day of Other than those of you who have indicated your dissents, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do you all agree that this is your verdict? State of Wisconsin versus Jeffrey L. Dahmer, case number F912542, special verdict. Question number 1. The time the crime was committed in count 15 of the information in regard to the death of Joseph Bredehoft, did the defendant Jeffrey L. Dahmer have a mental disease? Answer, no. Question number 2 need not be answered. Dated at Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this 15th day of February, 1992. And for those who have indicated their dissents, do you all agree that this is your verdict? Jurors, I've read 15 verdicts to you. Do you all agree that I have accurately read those verdicts to you? Counsel, do you have anything further for the jury? Mr. McCann, for the jury?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Boyle?
No, I think the polling has now been taking place properly.
Jurors, I'm about to excuse you, but before I do so, I think there's some thank yous and acknowledgments that I should make. First of all, I would like to share with you some information about some of the people who have made things a lot easier for all of us during the course of this trial. I'd like to mention to you the name of Dan Petrinas. Dan Petrinas carries the title of media coordinator for this district. And he is the man who is responsible for coordinating all the various media people, many of you whom you have not seen. And I think he just did an outstanding job in his efforts in regard to this case. I would like to express my personal appreciation for his efforts, and I think you as jurors should know that the job for all of us was made much easier because of his efforts. Lieutenant Fred Klopp of the Sheriff's Department. A lot had to be done in the way of security in connection with this. Lieutenant Klopp was working on this months ago in terms of setting up the arrangements. He did a highly professional job, a job for which I am grateful and which all the participants in this case should be grateful. Then there's some deputies that you had a little more closer contact with, the ones who were assigned to you. You know better than I what kind of job they did. But John and Frank are the regular deputies assigned to this court, and I know the quality of the work they do. And I would like to say that I appreciate their efforts as well as the court staff. You know, Vicki sitting in front of me, Mary, who's been with me as a court reporter for how many years, Mary? 14 years. I tell you, I couldn't do what I do up here if I didn't have people like that working here. So I am very grateful for their efforts. I'm very grateful for the efforts of all of the people, not the least of whom were two of the finest attorneys in Milwaukee, the state of Wisconsin, and I dare say in the United States. And I'm very grateful for their efforts, because what I do up here couldn't possibly be done without the cooperation of two outstanding trial attorneys. And 14 of you, only 2 of you sitting in the jury box now, but the other 2, I believe, are in the courtroom over here, right? Yeah. You know, we talked to you in the beginning of the case about citizen responsibility and how, in order to give people a fair trial, it's necessary to have a cross-section of people from the community. It's always the case that some people are asked to give more than others. And certainly the 14 people who sat through these 3 weeks have given more than just many, many people in this community to make this system work. My goal, my personal goal in terms of this trial, was to make it a sound, professional, legal trial, to show that in Milwaukee we have a system of justice that can't be beat anywhere else in this country. And with your help, I think we did that. So on behalf of myself, on behalf of every participant in this trial, thank you very much for the contribution you've made. And as you walk away and you look back on this a year from now, 2 years from now, I hope that you will be proud as I am of you, for the contribution that you've made to the justice system in this community and in this country. So, how else do you say it? Thanks, Dr. Shane. The jurors will now be excused. I'll come back in a few moments and chat with you a little more. But thank you very much.
All right,
Okay, first of all, Mr. McCann, you have a motion at this time?
For judgment on the verdict, Your Honor.
And I would make the opposite.
Defense motion is denied, the state's motion is granted. The
Judge,
next question is a matter of disposition. We talked a little bit about the timing on that in chambers, Mr. Boyle.
I think I'm going to ask for 10 o'clock on Monday morning.
Joining the motion.
Let me say this, that is the practice of this court, that whenever an attorney asks for some additional time to prepare for disposition, so long as it's reasonable, that's granted. I think a request that we do this at 10 o'clock Monday morning is a reasonable request, and therefore it's granted.
I would ask the court for a 10-minute contact visit in the back with my client and his father and stepmother. I'm told I got to ask that on the record.
Are we joining that request?
So ordered. Court's in recess.
So Judge, you had indicated you were going to speak to another issue. Family, the impact
Yes,
statement.
okay, that's. I talked to the victim witness people a little bit about this earlier. In terms of the victim's families being able to give an impact statement at the time of sentencing, the court will hear that. But you have to understand, what we have now is 15 families. So what I'm asking is that within each family, you designate a spokesman. And the court will hear from that spokesman for a reasonable period of time. I hope you appreciate that we do have to move this disposition on. So I'm trying to get a fair balance here so that everybody has a chance to be heard, but yet that we can do the work that's necessary to be done in this court. That'll be Monday at 10 o'clock. Court's in recess.